The King's Avatar, Chapter 1279 Cowards. Audio source WurshaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1279 Cowards. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Win. Quote. With Tang Hao's final shout, although the mentality of Wind Howl's players weren't yet in unison, their low morale had reignited to a certain extent. It seems to be quite lively over there at Wind Howl. Quote. At Happy's side, the players were finishing up their strategy prep for the team competition. Chen Guo liked to listen on the side, but every time she listened, she would feel dizzy and her attention would run astray. Trying to follow their discussion on strategy was hard. The poor Chen Guo could only look around and noticed Wind Howl suddenly fire up, yelling and shouting fervently. Everyone in Happy had noticed the shouts from over there too, and when they looked at them, they just happened to meet gazes with Wind Howl. Compared to Happy's relaxed and casual glance, Wind Howl seemed to be focused on a certain individual. It looks like our last-minute changes were very necessary, Yizhu said. The others looked towards Fang Rui. Happy's changes in the team competition were on Fang Rui. Today, he was the main character. No problem. Fang Rui gave 2 thumbs up to everyone. Then, let's get ready. Yizhu nodded his head and said. After the break was over, the referee called for them, and the players participating in the team competition started walking towards the stage. Team Happy, Yizhu, Su Mucheng, Fang Rui, Qiao Yivan, and Wenyi, and their 6th player, Steamed Bun. Team Wind Howl, Tang Hao, Lu Hao, Zhao Yuzhe, Lin Feng, Ruin Yanbin, and their 6th player, Guo Yang. Team Wind Howl's roster had undergone a transformation within these past 2 years. Just looking at the current lineup, apart from Ruin Yangbin, no one else in the team had played on the team for 3 years yet. From this perspective, Zhao Yuzhe was actually the most experienced among them. Tang Hao and Guo Yang had only been a part of the team for 2 years. Lu Hao and Lin Feng had joined the team last summer. After this season, they would complete their first full year with the team. An entirely new player roster meant a change in Wind Howl's original tactical style, which included their class composition. Both Brawler and Thief were still important, but their stable Knight position gradually fell to a secondary position this season. Lu Hao's Spellblade entered the team. Guo Yang's Chi Master joined the team last season and his position hadn't been too stable until this season, where he finally became a part of the main roster. Guo Yang rejecting Yizhu's invite to join Happy didn't seem to be a bad choice. He had at least established a firm position for himself in Team Wind Howl. Of the total 12 players between the 2 teams, 3 of the classes were repeats. The Brawlers, Tang Hao and Steamed Bun. The Chi Masters, Fang Rui and Guo Yang. The Clerics, and Wenyi and Ruin Yongbin. But because Steamed Bun and Guo Yang were the 6th players, the starting lineup only had Clerics as repeats. As a healer class, 2 Clerics weren't anything rare. The 2 teams walked onto the stage and greeted one another. The Wind Howl players, who lost in the individual rounds, clearly wanted revenge. The smell of gunpowder was heavy. The referee watched the 2 teams' players closely. After confirming that neither side said anything out of bounds or made any violent physical contact, he gestured for the players to go to their player booths. The team competition was about to start. Wind Howl's loyal fans had lost all hope, but after noticing how their team had suddenly spirited up, their energy returned too. Wind Howl's banner began flying around in the Sea Ocean Stadium again. The needs of the fans were quite simple. They didn't need to see any crazy results. Just their attitude alone was enough to make them feel like their support wasn't wasted. After the countdown, the 2 teams loaded into the map, and the team competition began. The map was the Paley Town Market. Paley Town was a small town in the Glory continent, and this marketplace had been taken straight out of this small town as a map. In reality, around 90% of the Glory PvP maps were taken from places on the Glory continent. The map's design already existed, so when taking the map, only its usage need to be evaluated. The Paley Town Market was considered a city map. Streets, different height buildings, and indoor and outdoor playable areas were common in these maps. The Paley Town Market had relatively fewer outdoor areas. Just the market plaza took up nearly half the map. This plaza wasn't just an empty field, and the market naturally had all sorts of booths and goods scattered around. The durability of these goods were rather low though, so the entire market could be seen as destructible. The starting 5 characters of the two teams spawned at opposing corners. Happy, Unspecialized Lord Grim, Launcher Dancing Rain, Chi Master Boundless Sea, Ghostblade 1-inch Ash Cleric Little Cold Hands, Wind Howl, Brawler Demon Subduer, Spellblade Absent Sun, Elementalist Beautiful Light, Thief Doubtful Demon, and Cleric Soul Healer. As soon as the match began, Wind Howl displayed their reinstated spirits. The entire team went into formation and ran straight for the center of the map. The Wind Howl fans nowadays were no stranger to this scene, but in the past, when the criminal partners were there, Wind Howl rarely chose such a direct opening. However, the current Wind Howl would almost always rush at their opponents to crush them no matter who their opponents were. In truth, the fans had also liked this sort of bearing in the beginning. Who didn't like to see their team destroy the opponents? In the first 5 rounds this season, Wind Howl had crushed everything in their path, dominating their opponents each round. However, their opponents these 5 rounds were Conquering Cloud, Radiant, Lightly, Bright Green, and Miracle. Not a single one of them was strong teams. Wind Howl's beautiful opening was somewhat stifled by their schedule. In round 6, Wind Howl faced Samsara. Their momentum suddenly hit an iron wall. Then, in round 7, they were decimated in the team competition by Tyranny. Round 8, wrecked by Blue Rain in the team competition. Round 9, wiped out by 301 in the team competition. Round 10, Wind Howl faced Seaside and swallowed them up. Of these 10 rounds, Wind Howl immediately became the bad name among strong teams. They won against weak teams, but as soon as they met against anyone strong, they crumbled. Luckily, in round 11 and round 12, Wind Howl beat Misty Rain and Void, proving themselves. But in round 13, 100 Blossoms washed them. In round 14, Thunderclap stomped on them again. Round 15, they suffered an embarrassing defeat to Royal Style. Round 16 and round 17, they matched against Heavenly Swords and Parade, and Wind Howl once again stood back up. Wind Howl was among the top 8 because they were clearly superior to the weaker teams, not losing points they shouldn't be losing. However, as soon as they faced anyone even a tiny bit strong, their team instantly collapsed. Were they a strong team? Right now, this title had been knocked off of Wind Howl. Players were calling them cowards, their knees turning soft as soon as they encountered a strong team. This round, they had run into a strong opponent after bullying 2 weak teams. It was time to prove that they weren't cowards. But right now, the team had been swept clean in the individual rounds. WashOurWorldAudio.com. If they lost the team competition, they would have 0 points. It wasn't possible to go any lower than that. Even so, Team Wind Howl displayed their usual tyrannical and dominating bearing. The 5 characters formed a standard offensive formation and headed straight for the center, the Paley Town Market Plaza. With the plaza taking up half of the map, all sorts of booths and goods were scattered and smashed apart. Even the player cameras became messy. Zhao Yuzhe received an order and immediately had his beautiful light jump towards a pile of bags to the side. With a few hops, he reached the top, and before he could look down carefully, gunshots rang. The gunshots were loud and clear. Wind Howl instantly figured out the general location of the gunfire and immediately pushed towards that direction, including Beautiful Light, who had jumped onto the pile of bags to lure in the attacks. Zhao Yuzhe's offensive prowess was exceptional. As soon as the gunshots rang, he quickly adjusted his character's line of sight and instantly teleported in that direction. He escaped and pushed forward. The one being attacked instead became the attacker. How fierce! Quote, at this moment, the Dirty Master Fang Rui's trash talk popped up mysteriously in the chat. Wind Howl's offensive had considered the surroundings too. Seeing the sudden trash talk, the 5 characters split the work and surveyed the surroundings to ascertain Fang Rui's position. However, he wasn't there. There was only one person in their sights, Yishu's Lord Grimm. An ambush. In this situation, anyone would have thought that Lord Grimm was just bait. Happy's other characters were probably lying in wait in this complicated terrain. However, Wind Howl didn't retreat. Continue forward. To be able to set up such an ambush this quickly meant they didn't bring their healer. It was a very logical deduction. Wind Howl had rushed here very fast, but if Happy could set up an ambush before they arrived, it could only mean that Happy had let go of the healer, who would slow down the team. An ambush without a healer. What's there to be scared of? Wind Howl's Captain Tang Hao thought like this, so their momentum didn't falter. Lu Hao had his misgivings though. He had wanted them to slow down a bit and be more cautious, but seeing Tang Hao's firmness, he didn't much more of it and followed along with his captain's pace. But at this moment, a spinning blaze of fire fell towards the center of Wind Howl's formation. Heat-seeking missile. Dodge. Lu Hao typed a warning instinctively. His absent son scrambled for his life towards outside of this heat-seeking missile's range. Tang Hao's demon subduer raised his arms and threw a brick, which looked weak, in comparison to the missile. However, a brick was still much bigger than a bullet, so it was much easier to hit a target with it. And as it turned out, the heat-seeking missile was smacked aside by the brick. None of the other Wind Howl players had moved. Only Lu Hao's absent son had sped out of there. Seeing the danger averted, his face turned burning hot, though he didn't forget to call out in the public chat. Our captain is mighty. If you've got the time to spout useless words, why don't you use it on moving your character instead? The praise that he had typed into the public chat was only met with Yishu's disdain. End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1280. Not focused enough. Audio source: wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1280. Not focused enough. Translator: Nomyami. Editor: Nomyami. Lu Hao's eyes twitched a few times, and even a few old fans of Team Excellent Era felt some déjà vu at that moment. Yishu, Lu Hao, this pair of old teammates had already become enemies, but their back and forth in the public chattel was reminiscent of their time back in Excellent Era. Lu Hao would never forget the icy contempt that Yishu showed towards his well-meaning compliment. To Lu Hao, calling out a beautiful play by a teammate was a way of boosting the morale of the team, but Yishu maintained that his praise was too excessive. Praise was also a form of encouragement. Who would feel that such things were excessive? On top of that, it wasn't as if he didn't have any situational awareness. He'd never left an opening because of it, so wasn't it fine? But even if this was the case, Yishu still maintained that he wasn't focused enough. Yes, not focused enough. This was the flaw that Yishu always pointed out when it came to Lu Hao. From the time he became a player in Team Excellent Era, to the time when he became vice-captain of Excellent Era. If you've got the time to spout useless words, why don't you use it on moving your character instead? When he saw this line, Lu Hao was infuriated. He hadn't delayed his inputs at all due to these few words that he'd typed. What did Yishu expect from him? Lu Hao exploded with fury, and Absent Sun pounced towards Lord Grimm more violently than anyone else. He was originally someone who could control his emotions well, but deep in every person's heart, they had certain inviolable taboos. These words that Yishu said had effectively stabbed at a scar that had lasted many years. In the past, he could only brood about it silently, but now, he could finally use his actions on the battlefield to speak for himself. He wanted to tell Yishu, controlling or not controlling your character for a moment isn't anything important. Earthquake Sword. Absent Sun swept out with his sword, directly destroying a merchant's stall in front of him. Upon clearing this path for himself, Absent Sun trampled on the wreckage and charged forwards. Demon Subduer and Doubtful Demon, the two strongest characters in Wind Howl, followed behind Absent Sun and advanced through the trail of wreckage. Once upon a time, they had been called the Criminal Partners, but now, this name was on the verge of becoming history. In the Alliance's voting for Best Partner, these two characters that had fought side by side for so many years weren't even grouped together. Being partners wasn't something that could be achieved simply by being in the same team. If not, the best partner selection would be selecting an entire team of 5 people at once. Partnership wasn't something that the Alliance had ever clearly defined, but going by the results of previous years, these partners were usually the pair of core players in a team who had the most rapport, and their teamwork had to be extremely outstanding. In today's Wind Howl, Demon Subduer was a core character, just as before, and he was just as outstanding as before, but Doubtful Demon's place in the team had gotten weaker and weaker. Brawler and Thief, this pair was no longer the centerpiece to Wind Howl's playstyle. Nowadays, who stood beside Demon Subduer as his greatest helper? Fire Wave Formation. Absent Sun slashed out again, directly cutting a path through the obstacles in his way. After sending out consecutive skills, Absent Sun's movements slowed down. Demon Subduer overtook him from the side, stepped in the middle of the flames of Fire Wave Formation and charged forward. An extremely beautiful covering play. Anyone would admit as much. The timing of Fire Wave Formation and the charge of Demon Subduer was coordinated beautifully, and the enveloping blaze gave Demon Subduer a temporary layer of protection. At this time, anyone who wanted to attack him from close range would first have to suffer the damage of Fire Wave Formation. But if it was from a long range, boom boom boom, 3 shots sounded out, and Sumut Chung's Dancing Rain once again joined the fray. When the heat-seeking missile had been sent out earlier, everyone in Wind Howl had more or less figured out her position. She was very far away, and as such, was unsuitable as a breakthrough point, so everyone continued to focus on Lord Grimm. As for Sumut Chung's continued harassment from afar, Wind Howl could be said to have foreseen it. When the cannon shots rang out, Zhao Yuji's beautiful light had already pointed with his staff, instantly creating an ice wall at the side of the Fire Wave Formation. The brilliant combination of fire and ice gave Demon Subduer complete protection from all sides. The anti-tank missiles that Dancing Rain fired over were a low-level skill, without enough power to shatter the ice wall, and if Sumut Chung were to use another skill, Demon Subduer's charge would have been completed. Following the flames of Fire Wave Formation, Demon Subduer had rushed close to Lord Grimm, and reached the effective range for a brawler's control skills. Sand Toss. Demon Subduer flicked his wrist and threw the skill out. Lord Grimm simply opened his umbrella to block the attack. Screensaver. When Lord Grimm opened the Myriad Manifestation umbrella, everyone immediately thought of this point. The Myriad Manifestation umbrella's shield form was so large it was borderline criminal, to the point where it could not only hide attacks, but could even hide another player who could attack from the side. Tang Hao had obviously seen that there was no one at Lord Grimm's side at the time, but he still didn't dare to attack head-on. Instead, he moved horizontally and adjusted his angle of attack, leaving the head-on assault to Lu Hao. Lu Hao quickly grasped to his intent, and Absent Sun walked forwards a few steps before attacking. As he directly faced Lord Grimm's open umbrella, he sent out an ice wave formation without any hesitation. He was able to maintain a more mid-range distance when fighting, so he didn't have to worry as much about what kind of tricks Yi Xiu was hiding behind that umbrella. At this time, Lin Feng's Doubtful Demon had already activated stealth, creeping behind enemy lines. Even though he was a battle thief, he wouldn't completely abandon the sneaky skills of a thief. What about Zhao Yuzhe? At this time, he had spotted a cargo crate and was controlling Beautiful Light to jump on top of it. When looking down from an elevation, he would have a wider field of view and a larger area which he could attack. When he jumped halfway and his field of view had expanded a little, he spotted a ghost blade behind a pile of cargo sacks, the Tai Chi in his hands already charged with a phantom ghost's power. "Careful, there's a phantom demon!" Zhao Yuzhe shouted as Beautiful Light casted a piercing lightning towards him. But at this time, Qiao Yifan's 1-inch ash had already completed the cast for his ghost boundary and an ice boundary instantly formed, protecting Lord Grimm. Of the 3 characters from Wind Howl that had charged up, 2 were already inside the ice boundary. Tang Hao's reactions were swift, directly using a powerful knee strike to leap out of the ice boundary. On the other hand, Lin Feng was humiliated. After leaving stealth, Doubtful Demon's movements were slowed, and he was unable to escape the sudden ice boundary in time, immediately being frozen into a large ice block. 1-inch ash had successfully casted his ice boundary, but he couldn't avoid Beautiful Light's piercing lightning in time. Piercing lightning hit, and as it did damage, it also informed everyone in Wind Howl of the Phantom Demon's whereabouts. Just as Zhao Yuzhe was preparing to attack once again, there was already cannon fire incoming. Sumo Chung's Dancing Rain had gotten control over a high vantage point and started to interrupt his attacks. In the team competition, the players would all suppress each other and interrupt attacks. So there was rarely a situation in which a player could capitalize on one successful attack and complete a combo, unlike in the individual competitors. Beautiful Light's attack was interrupted, but Tang Hao's Demon Subduer had already started rushing over to the spot where 1-inch ash was concealing himself, while Lu Hao's Absent Sun continued his assault on Lord Grimm. In terms of their positioning, Absent Sun was actually closer to 1-inch ash than Demon Subduer was. But at that time, Lord Grimm was under the protection of the ice boundary. While the brawler did have ways to attack at a medium range, if he was unable to attack at close range, the control that he could exert was insufficient. It was incomparable to the Spellblade, which was specialized in mid-range fighting, and so Tang Hao abandoned the closer target to seek the one that was farther away, attacking 1-inch ash while leaving Lord Grimm to Lu Hao. Doubtful Demon was frozen by the ice boundary. Demon Subduer had gone to attack the hiding 1-inch ash. Beautiful Light had been suppressed by Dancing Rain's firepower. As he looked at Lord Grimm, not far away from him, Lu Hao suddenly had a bad premonition. He could smell the prelude to a violent storm. The Myriad Manifestation umbrella dipped down very slightly. Was it about to come? Lu Hao opened his eyes wide. For now, disregarding what attack Lord Grim was going to use, he sent out a wave formation, but immediately afterwards, an arrow of blood spurted out from Absent Sun's neck. Absent Sun was then lifted from the ground and thrown into the ice boundary. Fling was a grab skill, and there was no way to prevent the character from being thrown. Absent Sun was thrown into the ice boundary and his speed immediately dropped. WooshOurWorldAudio.com. As he raised his camera upwards, he saw Lord Grim, who had appeared behind him. Shadow clone technique. Lu Hao had already realized it at this point, but if it was shadow clone technique, it required hand seals to be cast. Lord Grim was holding the myriad manifestation umbrella in front of him the whole time. How did he manage to form the hand seals? Lu Hao only held his suspicions for a moment, before immediately thinking of the time when the myriad manifestation umbrella dipped down very slightly. That motion wasn't the hand seals. Instead, Lord Grim had momentarily let go of the myriad manifestations umbrella, finishing the hand seals in the blink of an eye before grabbing the umbrella again. To be able to instantly think of this after the situation had occurred, Lu Hao could be considered to be very skilled. Yi Zhu almost immediately praised Lu Hao. Your ability to read the match is extremely outstanding, but you're always unable to put 100% of your attention into the match. There are far too many other things you're concerned about. It was his cliché line again. Lu Hao was infuriated, but his character was in danger and he really had no ability to type something out to fight Yi Zhu verbally. The Spellblade clearly had a stronger spirit stat than the thief, so his Absent Sun had only been slowed upon entering the ice boundary and not frozen solid unlike Doubtful Demon. He had to think of a plan to quickly escape the boundary, but with Lord Grim eyeing him so closely, would he have the opportunity to do so? At the end of the day, Lord Grim suddenly turned his head. Lu Hao froze. Crap. He suddenly realized the cleric. After the sudden attack earlier, they had been ambushed by Happy in the east. The west was completely barren and had eluded all of their attention. Cleric. They had completely forgotten to protect their own cleric. But where was he? Lu Hao froze again. Ruan Yongban's soul healer should not have been far behind them, but how come they couldn't even see a shadow of his figure now? Had he hidden somewhere? That guy was really dirty. Lu Hao thought about it. This Wind Howl, they truly deserved to be called a dirty team. This attitude had affected everyone on the team, aside from their new players. Ruan Yuangbin, he might only be a cleric, but he still had a dirty playstyle. The only thing was the master of dirty play who had influenced everyone in Wind Howl was now unhappy. Where was Fang Rui? Where was Boundless Sea? Lu Hao suddenly realized, aside from trash-talking once at the start, this guy had never appeared at all. Exclamation mark, quote. Just as he thought that, in Wind Howl's team chat, a cry for help from their cleric suddenly appeared. End chapter.
The King's Avatar, Chapter 1281 Lost Direction. Audio source, WooshOurWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1281, Lost Direction. Translator, Gnome Yummy. Editor, Gnome Yummy. Lu Hao was skilled at reading the situation. He was the first to sense something abnormal, their cleric, who had hidden himself, and the trash-talker Fang Rui, who was nowhere to be seen. A second later, a string of exclamation marks flashed into Team Wind Howl's chat. The exclamation marks came from Soul Healer. This was Wind Howl's agreed-upon rescue signal. Wind Howl saw it and turned around, but no one was able to find Soul Healer's whereabouts. Dirty. Zhao Yuji immediately thought of this word. He hated this word. Even when the team had featured dirtiness as their style, he had never tried to understand it. He only felt thankful that Wind Howl ended up changing styles, discarding the word dirty. However, it hadn't been eliminated thoroughly enough. There were still hints of this word in their team. For example, Ruan Yongbin had his character hide like a dirty thief. Zhao Yuji wanted to help him, but he couldn't find him. Annoying, annoying, annoying. Zhao Yuji was irritated at Ruan Yongbin's dirtiness. Their captain Tang Hao, Lu Hao, and Lin Feng weren't able to immediately locate Soul Healer either. Reading an agreed-upon rescue signal was easy, but no one had any synergy with Ruan Yongbin's dirty style. They symbolized the new Wind Howl, while Ruan Yongbin was a cleric player, left over from the old Wind Howl. Nearly all the other old players had been replaced. But who would have thought that the healer, a character with a different role than others, was unexpectedly going offbeat from the rest of the team because of the old style. And Happy's Fang Rui had persisted with this old style, so he was able to accurately locate Ruan Yongbin's hiding spot. Ruan Yongbin had been caught by Fang Rui, so he had sent a rescue signal. However, none of his teammates were able to find him. It looked like a hilariously stupid situation, but it let everyone realize just what kind of team the current Wind Howl was. Outstanding players. Powerful characters. Wind Howl possessed these, but whenever they encountered anyone strong, they just couldn't win. Why? Now, everyone understood. Team Wind Howl was still experiencing the hardships of going through a transformation. However, Wind Howl's deep-rooted style wasn't easy to get rid of. Just letting go of the master of playing dirty, Fang Rui, and changing their doubtful demon to a battle thief weren't enough to complete this transformation. Wind Howl wanted to give up on their roots. For a team, this was no different than demolishing an old building and constructing a new one. Last season, their determination hadn't been too clear. With Fang Rui at the head, the team had someone who played dirty as a part of their main roster, who was displaying the soul of the old team. With the support of the others in the team, Wind Howl had looked quite strong last season. Then, Wind Howl's new core became Tang Hao. He didn't realize the strength of Fang Rui's supportive play. In contrast, he and Zhao Yuji detested this playstyle. He couldn't see the soul of the team and only emphasized his own strength. He wanted his own strength to be magnified a step further, and this dirty style wasn't the support he liked. He was the captain. He was the core. The team revolved around him, and he didn't like this dirty style support. As a result, even the master of playing dirty, Fang Rui, lost his spot on the team. Fang Rui left, and Team Wind Howl added in a whole bunch of new players. These new players, who revolved around Tang Hao, weren't dirty at all. The rest, who were good at playing around a dirty style as a foundation, had been pushed to the second string. What waited for them was either to leave like Fang Rui did, or to change their styles to the new one. Letting go of playing dirty didn't necessarily spell their downfall. Many outstanding powerhouses in the Alliance didn't rely on playing dirty to win. But the problem was that once Wind Howl chose to abandon the style they had been familiar with, did their new playstyle have a clear direction? An aggressive style centered around Tang Hao. This seemed to be their plan, but how should they bring this plan into reality? How should the players work together? What responsibilities should each character have? When fighting, how should they coordinate their attacks? Thinking back to Wind Howl's matches this season, everyone discovered that while Team Wind Howl had gotten rid of the old style, their new style had yet to be realized either. A new and mature tactical system hadn't been formed. Facing weak teams, they could overwhelm their opponents through superior individual skill. However, when facing strong teams, without a clear tactical system, there were holes everywhere. Wind Howl's individual round results were quite good because their players and characters were strong. However, their team competition record was a disaster, all because their style hadn't fully matured yet. They couldn't find Soul Healer. Maybe they could blame it on not eliminating the dirty style thoroughly enough. However, it also showcased the mess Team Wind Howl was in. Champions. Right now, no one dared to bring this word up along with Wind Howl. Becoming the champions wasn't as simple as having individually strong characters and players. Wind Howl was like a fly without a head. They couldn't find Soul Healer's position, but they could still ask in the chat. Ruan Yongbin saw the question and replied back with his coordinates. Rescue had finally arrived. However, Happy had taken advantage of Wind Howl's confusion to attack wildly, smacking Wind Howl into a sorry state. Wind Howl had no idea what they should be doing. Although, when Zhao Yuji, Lin Feng, and Lu Hao, the three who had been 1v3'd by Fang Rui in the group arena, saw Fang Rui's boundless sea, their target was very clear. But how dirty was Fang Rui? How could he give them a chance to surround him? Seeing that he was outnumbered, he didn't even try to be brave and scurried off into the marketplace to play cat and mouse with the three. Fang Rui now had the attention of three of them. How was that okay? Lu Hao quickly noticed the imbalance. However, Zhao Yuji was still chasing after him. Lu Hao gave him a reminder and all he received was a "I can handle him alone." Lu Hao didn't agree with this reply, but he didn't immediately point it out because he knew Zhao Yuji's personality. The saying, "just you alone isn't enough," would certainly infuriate him. WuxaWorldAudio.com. It would definitely have the opposite effect. Lu Hao chose to stay silent. He and Lin Feng would provide support in other parts of the battle. Shortly afterwards, Zhao Yuji was ambushed by Fang Rui. Happy had even coordinated with Fang Rui and shifted targets. As a result, Zhao Yuji was now the one typing. The entire team hurried over to rescue him. Lu Hao had predicted this outcome though, so he came to the rescue promptly. Good. Zhao Yuji felt very thankful for Lu Hao's prompt rescue. Everyone had also seen Lu Hao save the situation at a key moment. But it looks like you were ready for it. Yishu rushed over from the side. Lord Grimm used several movement skills in a row to instantly move to Lu Hao's absent son. Such a fast response. Yishu had been ready too. Dancing Rain's artillery barrage, 1-inch Ash's ghost boundaries, and even Happy's healer Little Cold Hands appeared in Lu Hao's sight. In an instant, an offensive formation had formed. Their target, absent son. It was a trap. Lu Hao didn't hesitate and immediately typed, quote, he didn't think he could break through the premeditated formation set up by Happy so easily. However, even if his teammates rescued him, what then? Wind Howl had too many openings. Happy just need to pick one and attack their openings again and again, while Wind Howl ran around rescuing one after the other. Apart from the opening, Wind Howl had never showed the initiative once. Fight! Captain Tang Hao shouted. However, was Wind Howl's problem an issue that could be resolved through morale? Their individual players were good, but they weren't overwhelmingly strong to the point where they could just crush everything in their path through superior individual skill alone. What they lacked was teamwork. Lu Hao's absent son was the first to fall. To the viewers out there though, even in this losing situation, Lu Hao's performance had no lack of highlights. He had saved Wind Howl several times during crucial moments. If you could completely focus on the match, how would things have turned out? Quote, but when he fell, Yishu once again lectured him on that annoying old subject. How am I supposed to focus more? Why are you so annoying, always blabbering? Do you really think that with your trash talk, people will think that I didn't perform well? Hilarious. Even though Wind Howl's going to lose, who could pick out anything wrong with my performance? With one player dead, Wind Howl went into an even more passive state. From start to end, they had never taken the initiative even once. Wind Howl's loyal fans had seen their players march onto the stage in high spirits, but their opponents instantly tore them apart as if they were paper tigers. If Wind Howl had lost an intense back and forth, even though the fans would still feel sad, they wouldn't feel downhearted. But Wind Howl seemed to have gone into the match full of confidence, yet they had never gained the upper hand from start to finish. The fans weren't able to find even a shred of hope. The Wind Howl banner once again drooped down. That loyal fan responsible for the banner was reminiscing about the Team Wind Howl with the Criminal Partners. Even though that team hadn't placed as high on the rankings as the current Wind Howl, they had never made the fans lose all hope. Matches need to be won, but winning wasn't everything in a competition. Team Wind Howl failed to win a single point, nor did they perform well. All they seemed to have was high morale, but when they came onto the stage, they were like balloons and instantly burst apart. How could this sort of team give us any sort of hope? Wind Howl's fans were suddenly at a loss. A team that currently qualified for the playoffs was unexpectedly making many people feel lost. End chapter.